My name is Louise McColl, and I'll be presenting the presentation on volunteer coaches. I've been coaching myself for about 15 years now. Started back in the UK when I was playing over there, and my coach at the time asked if I wanted to start coming to training sessions a little bit earlier and helping out with some of the junior girls. So I jumped at the chance and I started coming to training earlier. I really enjoyed helping out, and the coach asked me if I'd be interested in doing one of the coaching badges, which was at the time the FA level 1 over in the UK. So I think I recall that was about a 4 or 5 day course. And so I did that and continued to help at training. I then moved over to Australia in 2008 and continued to play when I was over here. My first role over here was coaching my son's under 17. And so like many of you, the parent coach deciding to help out at training. The reason I probably took that role at the time was I'm in regional Victoria, and there probably wasn't a lot of people that were playing the sport at the time that also had children playing. So of course I took the role and I really enjoyed it. So fell in love with coaching, still playing, and decided to start going on the coaching courses. So since then, I've been doing the coaching courses over here, and I've been lucky enough to start working in football as a part-time role, and also presenting some courses with Football Victoria. My role at the moment is Technical Director of the Bendigo Amateur Soccer League representative squad, and also Coach Education Manager for the league. Volunteer coach. So we're going to be looking at this from two perspectives. One is of the volunteer, so only in the case of a volunteer coach. Why people volunteer as a coach, what makes a good volunteer, and then tips for being an organised volunteer. We're also going to be looking at from the club's point of view. So what clubs need from a volunteer coach, how clubs recruit volunteer coaches, and then how they can help support and retain those coaches. So why this topic? Well, volunteer coaches play a really important role in our clubs and our community. They are the link between the club and the stakeholders, being the players, the parents, maybe committee members, supporters. So they're on the face of it. So they play an important role there. Volunteer coaches have identified that they're often taken on several roles. So they might start off by coaching one team, then maybe help out with another, maybe even a third, possibly helping out in the canteen, marking the line. So there's lots of different roles that a volunteer coach may take on at their club. Clubs have then identified that they find it difficult to recruit new coaches, attract people to the game, and then support them in order to keep them coming back each year. Then, with the recent impact of the global pandemic, this has made changes in the way that volunteers operate and how clubs also have their coaches at the club. So that's why the topic I feel is important and what we're going to have a look at in this presentation. So we're going to start by having a look at this from the volunteer's point of view. This is what the research says. So people volunteer because they want to feel part of something. They want to feel that they're adding value to their community. They want to meet new people and have social inclusion. They're intrinsically motivated to get better. So the more you do something, the better you hopefully become. So people volunteer to coach because they want to get better at coaching. They want to be recognized in the community as having a role or adding value to that community. So that's coming from the point of view of the research and what the research says. Research also says that a good volunteer is proactive and keen to learn, organized with their time. They have good social skills, really good with people, which of course you need to have if you're going to be working with a team, and they're resilient. So I looked into further about what the resilient part of that meant and had to think about it myself. Why do we need to be resilient as volunteers or volunteer coaches? It's long hours. So on top of your working commitments and regular commitments that you already have, being a volunteer coach can add long hours to that. You're in different types of weather, so you have to be resilient as far as being able to go out in the heat, the cold, the rain, the wind. You're dealing with different types of personalities. So when you're dealing with groups, and obviously this is why you need good social skills, you are dealing with different types of people, different personalities, different ways that people operate. You also need to be resilient because it can feel like you're being judged at times. So I don't know if you can relate to putting on a session and feeling that somebody is judging your session, or on a match day when, oh, I wouldn't have done this and I wouldn't have done that. And you feel the pressure of somebody judging you, but at the end of the day, you're the one doing the volunteer work and you're the one being the coach. But again, it's just about being resilient. So again, looking at this from the volunteers' point of view, I sent out a questionnaire to a group of volunteers, coaches within my network. So that went out to coaches across regional Victoria and also into the Metro Melbourne area. So the responses that I got back from this questionnaire, there were some different opinions, but on the whole, there was a really common thread and common theme as to the answers to each question. So these are some of the points of view that those coaches said. They volunteer because they want to pass the enjoyment or the love of the game on to other people. They volunteer because they want to connect or feel part of the community. They feel like they owe the sport something. So maybe they played when they were younger, maybe they're still playing and they want to give something back to the sport. They're coaching because their kids play. There's also a sense of people coaching because if they don't do it, they're worried that nobody else will be there to do it. So they keep doing it. When they were asked what they feel a good volunteer is, it was somebody that's willing to learn new skills, responsible and takes ownership for their role, and also good at working with others. They're passionate for the sport and of coaching. So maybe they're new to the sport, but they've got a passion for wanting to help people and wanting to coach. So again, we want to bring in new people that may not be part of the sport before, but they may have a passion for coaching. And of course, a great communicator. So they were the common things that people said in that questionnaire. So volunteers and how coaches manage their time. So again, based on this questionnaire that went out to the coaches, these are some of the things that the coaches said. Now, this is a really big topic. So again, just bringing this back into the context of it being volunteer coaches and not generally time management as a whole, although it is, some of these things will resonate in many areas of day-to-day life. So how many of these things can you relate to? Writing sessions or thinking of sessions during your lunch break. Coaches manage their time by changing the working hours to suit the commitment. They're writing session plans late at night. They're not managing their time very well, and therefore it's impacted their work or family life. And they try to work closely with others to share the load. So the recent impact. Obviously, the last 2 years has impacted many things in different ways. So looking at it from how it's impacted volunteer coaches, people have found new or different pastimes that maybe they didn't have before. They can no longer move their working hours to suit. Maybe they have a new job or the job is busier than usual. They've had a break from coaching, and so now they think they don't want to fill that with a regular commitment. And I've put there, that they don't think they want to, because I'd imagine that people will want to get back to things. And so we're hoping that will change. They're feeling burnt out by the amount of work that they did in the last 2 years. So I know for myself, the amount of work that went into the coaching side of things and football in the last 2 years was probably a lot more than previous years. And yet the end result felt a lot less. And so that was really hard. Like I found that quite a big challenge for myself in doing a lot more work, but not seeing those results that we would normally see. People are now offering to help now and then, but not wanting to commit to a big workload, which, isn't helping, because nobody's then fully committing to a role. So when we talked about being responsible for a role, you need to know that somebody's going to do something. So only wanting to help out now and then isn't going to be very helpful for clubs down the track. On a positive, people possibly are fed up and they're going to be looking for something to do. So when it's safe to return to regular activities as normal, hopefully we'll be able to find more volunteers and new people to the game. So now that we've looked at it from the point of view of a volunteer, let's have a look at what the clubs think and what the clubs need and want. So again, this is based from some research and readings that I've done over the past few weeks, and also parts of the questionnaire that was sent out. So not only was the questionnaire sent out to people that were volunteer coaches, but also people involved in the club. So that would be presidents, committee members, junior coordinators, senior coordinators, people involved at the club on the club level, and not necessarily coaching. So what clubs need from a coach? A commitment to do what they said they would do. So if they said they're going to coach one night a week, they coach one night a week. If that's 2, 3 plus run game day, then they do what they've said that they've set out to do. Assist in supporting players in the game. So clubs want a coach to be able to create the environment where the players want to come back each week. The willingness to work in a group, again, goes without saying, if you're going to work in a team environment, you have to be able to work within a group. Someone that aligns with the club values. This is a good one, but also you can only align with the club values if you know what they are. So that's something that clubs, if they have that, easier to follow from the start if the club values are visible. And good communication and time management. Then we'll have a look here at what coaches want from clubs. So with the coach, so we know what a club needs from a coach, but what does a coach want from the club? So coaches said that they wanted communication from the club. So who can relate to saying that you're coach for the club for the year? You get an email telling you to meet at the club at 4:00 on a Tuesday afternoon, and you get given the bag of balls and the training tops for the year. You then don't hear from the club until the end of the season, when you're told to meet again at Tuesday at 4 to hand all the footballs back. So clubs want that. Coaches want the communication from the club. An outline of what is required. Again, some coaches are new to the sport and they want an outline of what they are supposed to do that year, not just contact at the beginning and at the end. Assistance throughout the year, and a succession plan for what is next. So looking into that a little bit further, it's more knowing that who else is there to help. They don't want to feel like they're the only ones that are there to help. So if they can't make a training session, who can help out? If they don't take on the role the following year, who's helping them in order to take on that role the next time? And a sense of community, not being an individual team. So if we think back to knowing that coaches or people volunteer because they want to feel part of something, if they step forward to be part of a club and coach a team and then find that they don't have that inclusion within the club, they do feel like they're an individual team on their own, then they're not going to get what they want out from being a volunteer, or what the research says they want from being a volunteer. So they want to feel part of something, not on their own out there. So looking at clubs and how clubs currently recruit and support their coaches. So again, this is taken from the answer from the questionnaires that were sent out to the club people. So currently, clubs engage with the parents when they register. They use social media to try and recruit coaches. They support coaches by providing workshops for new coaches. They ask senior players to help, and they try and have an assistant within each team. So that's what clubs have identified that they currently aim to do. Whether that's working fully in all aspects, that's not clear. This is what they're aiming to do. So again, looking at the recent impact of the last 2 years from the point of view of the club now. Clubs have had a loss of revenue. So it's their fundraisers, their memberships, registrations. They haven't been able to go and do the sausage sizzle, the trivia nights, the gala days. They've not been able to run the canteen as often. So there's that loss of income. The increased running costs to a club. So although there's been some fantastic grants given out, it may not be enough to cover what the clubs have spent. With the regulations and new operations and protocol, it means that there's either more volunteers needed per club, or that the same volunteers are getting an even higher workload on top of what they've already taken on. There's a decline in participation amongst those aged 11 to 18, which means less registrations in the club. At grassroots level, especially, the football is more than just about that game day. It's about the community and the sense of having that belonging to the community. So without having everybody there on game day and at training, the clubs feel like they've lost that a little bit. One way to look at it is that community sport is hopefully going to be needed to get people out there active and social again. And so it's really something that maybe we can look at to bring people back into the sport or new people to the sport. So now that we've had a look at volunteer coaches and from the point of the volunteer and also from the club, we'll have a look at some tips for volunteers. So first of all, organisation. How can you be a better organised volunteer coach? Reuse session plans a lot. So if a session works and that you enjoy coaching it and the players enjoy being in it, it's okay to reuse that session. And this can be not just once or twice throughout the season, but you can have that session adapted and used even if it's every other week or more. So I'd personally suggest having about 4 to 6 sessions that you like to use and just rotating them. So based on the age group, if that's a young age group, have some of the favorite games that they like to play, some of the sessions that you like to coach, and just rotate them. So it might be like week 1, 2, 3, 4, and back to week 1, and just adapt it slightly to suit what it is you would like to get across, but just changing it. For older age groups, obviously there may be things that you want to coach within that a little bit more, but you can still reuse sessions that you know work and just adapt them to suit. So don't feel like you have to write a new session every single time. You can adapt and change things that you know work well. Playing small-sided games or medium-sided games is always a really good one for the players. So if you're not sure what to do for a session, then 3v3s, 4v4s, all the way up to the 8v8s is a really good session to put on and gets the players playing and you're able to watch and coach. Set clear and achievable goals for yourself. So that might be that you say, okay, I'm going to write 2 sessions and I'm going to reuse those sessions for the next 2 weeks. Set that goal, write those sessions, and then try and achieve that goal. Don't say you're going to write 12 sessions within the next 2 days, because unless you know you can achieve that, you want to be able to achieve your goals. So personally for me, not just based on coaching, but I've got my whiteboard in front of me. It's got Monday through to Sunday, and I have the key things that I want to achieve each day. If I can get that key thing done each day, then I feel good because I get to tick that off. And also anything else that I get done on top of that makes me feel like I've even achieved more. But it's an achievable goal that I have for each day. Hold yourself accountable. So if you set aside 30 minutes for writing a session or researching a session or topic of football, try and use that 30 minutes for doing that. So one tip that I have for that is it's very easy to be distracted by a phone. So what I'll do is if I've set myself some time to work on something in particular, I'll move my phone away or even turn it, set it so that obviously if there's something important that comes through, I will be alerted, but I'm less likely to reach and grab my phone for no reason if it's out of my way. It's just little things like that. So be accountable. And know how much time you have. So be honest with your time and how much time you can give to something. In the readings that I was doing, I did come across something I found quite outstanding, really. So it's in the references at the end. However, what I read was that people in Gen X are spending around 6 hours a day average on their phone. Millennials are spending just under 7 hours a day on their phone. And Gen Z around 7.5 hours a day on their phone. So apparently what the research said was if that was to equate to an average lifespan, then people will be spending 17 years on their phone if things didn't change. I found that quite amazing to think like we can spend enough time on our phone each day, more time than people need to set aside for example, doing a degree. So be accountable and honest with your time. Can you fit something in? If not, you can't. And if you can, then great. And general tips for, so not so much an organization, but sort of general, is have that routine and aim to stick to it. Ask for support. So don't try and do everything on your own. If it feels overwhelming, ask for some support, and also try and support others when you can. Be flexible with yourself. Training hardly ever goes to plan, or things hardly go to plan. It might be that you've planned a session and you get there and you don't have the players that you wanted or the numbers that you needed. You don't have the weather that you expected. So I don't know how many times I've planned a session to use, 4 or 5, 6 pop-up goals, and it's been a really blustery evening and there's just no way that they're going to stay in the ground. So be adaptable, flexible, and don't be too hard on yourself if it doesn't go to plan. Think before you take on more. So I think this is a really important one, and something that I've had to get better at myself over the years. So often somebody will ask you to do, can you take on this role? It might be another role, or it might just be doing something for the club or for somebody. And it's really easy just straight away say, yes, you'll do it. And then either great, it happens and you've got the time to do that, or you feel straight away like, oh, I shouldn't have said I was going to do that. So try and be honest and take that time. So rather than saying yes straight away or no straight away even, just take a little bit of time to think whether that's something you can do. It's better to say no and be honest that you can't do something than say yes and later on either let that person or organization down by not doing it, or by not doing it as well as you'd like to have done. Or you feel worse for saying yes and then not being able to do something than just saying no in the first place. It's easier also in some of the research when I was reading about this. Don't say to somebody, oh, I don't have the time to do that. It's better to say, it's not something I can commit to right now, or I really like the idea of that. However, I won't be able to give that my full attention right now. And if it's something that they still want you to do, then maybe they can give you another time frame, or maybe it just doesn't work out that time. But really think before you take on more, especially based on having a look at what we've been looking at in this presentation. And that brings us to tips for the clubs. So we wanted to look at how clubs can recruit, support, and then retain coaches. So with recruit, have club welcome days with workshops. You can hold a gala day from the start of the season. Maybe on that gala day, you have some small-sided games or really easy games for coaches to be able to put on, and you have some volunteers that can follow that plan. If people see that it's easy enough to put on a session at the basic form, then they may be more willing to step forward when you do ask them on registration day. Resources from the start. So have either some resource that you can give out to people at the start, for coaches at the start that they can follow, or have a place that they can go and look at for those resources in order to have some ideas for what they want to do, rather than giving them the role and then them feeling that they don't know what to do. So I think that's a big thing especially with new coaches to the sport. They feel a little bit overwhelmed as to, okay, well, what do I do? So if they've got something right from the beginning, then they'll feel a lot better about doing that. As seniors, to start assisting with the juniors. So obviously not every senior player is required to do that or would be suited to do that. But if you can find some of the senior players that you think would be great to go to training and help out, then maybe they help out with training, maybe they end up taking a squad, or maybe they just come to game day, or maybe just training. But try and get some of the senior players involved at the junior games. And then juniors go into the senior games, of course. Supporting. So to support clubs, have scheduled workshops. So rather than, as we spoke about before, rather than just they get the footballs at the beginning and they don't see them again till the end, let them know, okay, here's the footballs, here's the equipment. We've already given you some sessions and some resources to have a look at, but we're also going to check in with you in 6 weeks and 8 weeks or whatever it is that you have, but have some scheduled check-ins where that coach feels they can be heard and supported. Have a club coach coordinator in place. So this is somebody that maybe has a squad within the club, but also dedicates another night or two to having a look at training sessions for other coaches. So it's a coach that, knows what they're doing a little bit and is able to provide support for new coaches or coaches that want that help. This is also somebody that then may be able to supply where to get recent resources from and help coaches with their sessions. So club coach coordinator within the club, it might be more than one person to help and support coaches. And share sessions and ideas. So you may have the ability to set up a social media group. So maybe it's whether it's use a Facebook group or WhatsApp group, Messenger, emails, something that somebody might be the CCC, the club coach coordinator, is in charge of monitoring, where you have a central communication where people can share ideas and support each other. And then they'll feel that they've got that sense of community because they're part of something, and also the ability to share for sessions in case they're not sure what they should be doing. And then retain. So with all that we've mentioned, will help towards that retention, but create a club culture that people feel valued in. So you don't need to praise people every single week for helping out and being a volunteer or volunteer coach, but a little bit of recognition throughout the year, and also the praise at the end of the year to thank them for what they've done and really acknowledge the time that people have given to the club, can go a long way in them wanting to step forward and remain to be part of the club the next year. And also place people where they're best suited. So somebody might be a really great junior coach, but not necessarily wanting to take on a senior coaching role, or they may be really good at senior coaching and not best suited at the junior level. So it's best not to have somebody in place if they're not the right person for that role. So place people where they're best suited, or where they can learn in an environment where they're going to be supported and assisted rather than on their own. I think if you can do that, then they're more likely to stay around. So I wanted to leave a saying or a message that resonated with people. And when I was looking for something, I came across these two. So the most valuable thing you can give someone is your time. So thinking about that from the point of view of a volunteer, if you're going to give your time to somebody and it's valuable, then make it worth it. So if it's going to be about coaching a team, then plan the sessions, look for resources, really spend that time well. And from a club point of view, remember, if somebody is giving you that time and they are volunteering to your club, then acknowledge that and praise the fact that they're doing that to them. And a truly amazing coach is hard to find, difficult to part with, and impossible to forget. So again, if you've got a coach at your club that is truly amazing coach, support them, help retain them, keep them there. And from a point of view of the volunteer coach, can you be that coach? So can you give your time and make it valuable so that you are impossible to replace and hard to forget? So I'd just like to say thank you for listening to this presentation on volunteers, especially volunteer coaches and clubs. And thank you to all the volunteers that are listening. You really can make a big difference to the sport.